Today we're going over what it takes to test and replace a Purge Control Solenoid Valve. Let's jump right into it. Now, of course, the first step is locating the valve. A simple web search, most of the time you can dig up where the valve lives. If you still have trouble, just purchase the factory repair manual for your vehicle. And on this Subaru, fortunately, very, very easy to get access to. Now, it's always a good idea just to test the valve simply because it's rather expensive, $110 for the factory part here. You also learn about your vehicle, but the valve may be okay, and maybe you have an electrical problem. So we'll go over everything very, very simplistically. Now, this vehicle does not have a problem. I'm just doing this as a how-to, but this has never been removed. It's now 13 years old, almost 180,000 miles. So see how difficult this is? I can't even remove the harness connector. So this is a trim removal tool. And what I'll do, simply so I don't crack the housing, just insert it. Let me reposition the camera here. This is a nice set. I've had it now for at least 5 years. Doesn't crack, doesn't break. And as always, I'll list all of the tools and supplies below. But typically, when you press down on the harness connector, it slides right off. In this case, it's just a lot of crud, it's dirty, so on and so forth. So with the plastic tool here, gently lift up. With a screwdriver, you can easily crack the housing. We don't want to do that. Gently help push it back. And there we go. Make it easy. You don't want to break or crack anything. And then there's a fastener holding on the bracket here. That's a 12 mil. And simply using a rubber mallet. That happens often when you film. It's not as easy as it looks sometimes, but here we go. Okay. Now typically when this valve goes, you may have hesitation, rough idle, maybe some surging. Or you may have no symptoms at all. You know, every vehicle is different, and it's simply rerouting the exhaust. Actually, I'll keep this off. The exhaust the exhaust gas into the combustion chamber. That's all it's doing. So you have less smog out of the tailpipe. And then we have two rubber lines. There's one right here, another on the bottom. Easiest way to remove these vacuum lines, I'll show you something like this. Okay, these are terrific. I don't think we have to remove the alternator. It's a really, really tight fit. But this is the nice thing about these pliers. You can clamp onto the hose and then rotate. We can rotate both or hold both hoses as we try to rotate the part off. It may take a little bit of time. This would maybe take 10 minutes at most to remove. But if I can save the time from doing that, let's see if we can get this off. Once again, the trim removal set. I hope you see this on camera. I think you'll be able to, but just pressing back. Because I used the pliers to break the hoses loose, I can now, there we go, press back. Just don't forget which hose goes to what. And then we have one more on the bottom. Okay. There it is. Now testing the valve, very, very easy. If you're familiar with my videos, you know, digital multimeter. This is huge, a must-have, must-have. And if we look where the harness connector plugs into, we have two terminals. Now to make this easier in my case, because I'm filming, I'm using these alligator clips. Not required, you'll see in a moment why. But simply inserting one here and pushing the boot down, okay? Like this, because I don't want the two wires to touch. It wouldn't hurt anything, just we would not get an accurate reading. The other one goes on the second terminal, okay? That's it. Multimeter, you want the ohms setting, okay? That's the omega symbol. Grab your leads, plug them in. And if you're not familiar with a multimeter, the leads come with the tool. And now all that we're going to do is read the meter and see if we have a reading. A good reading is roughly 30 ohms at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So it should vary, or will vary, depending on the temperature. And we have 36 ohms. That is a very good reading. The colder the temperature, the higher this number will be. So in this garage, it's roughly 55, 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The higher the temperature, the lower this number will be. But if you do this test, you don't see anything going on here, or maybe it's a really, really high number, a very good indication the valve is bad. So that's the first test. Now let's work over to the second. So we have two lines here. Now in my case, the top one goes to the intake manifold, bottom one goes to the evap line. So you have to know which one is which on your specific vehicle. If you can't dig it up, you could just try this test nonetheless. Process of elimination, you'll get it right eventually. So what you want to do, you want to blow air into the intake side, and because it's not energized, nothing should come out on the evap side. So in other words, you blow in the port, nothing should come out. Now let me clean it. You can use a vacuum gauge, something like this, a vacuum pump. But I'm just thinking, which my plan was to show you that, but some of you may not have that. And if you can save 40, 45 bucks, fine. If you do plan on working on your own vehicle, purchase a vacuum pump. Terrific tool to have. You could bleed brakes and test EGR valves and things like that. So I'm blowing into the intake port. Nothing's happening. Nothing's coming out on the other end. Now let's say you don't know which one is which. Let's blow in this one. It's still nothing. Nothing is happening whatsoever, but now let's energize it. So how do you energize it? Once again, we're using the alligator clips. If you have an old cordless tool that pushes out 12 volts, you don't want 20, it may burn it out. 12 volts. If, I said this the other day, if you have an RC car that runs on 3S LiPo, which is 11 volts, you can use that. In my case, I have a battery pack that pushes out 12 volts. You need 12 volts to activate the solenoid. So this is a little tricky to get everything on camera, so I'm going to use, let me grab it. I'm going to use the vacuum pump because there's no way I can hold everything and show you what I'm doing, but you'll need someone to help you with this part, okay? You'll see why in a second. So what we're doing, inserting a tube or a very soft rubber line into this. Okay, I'm going to add this to our vacuum pump. It's not the best connection. Let me grab a zip tie. Okay, we want a nice solid connection here. Okay, make it nice and tight. Okay, so if I insert some vacuum, see how it's holding? So no air is passing through, right? So we know that's good, but let's energize it. So this is where the alligator clips come into play. And I'm simply adding battery power directly to the valve, okay? Directly to the valve. Make sure that the wires don't cross. Here we go. Actually, you can hear it click. Okay, you can hear it click, so that's a very, very good sign. And now, if we try passing air through it, it goes right through. If I hold this, see that? That's it. That's what it takes to test a solenoid valve. Very, very easy to do. Now, wrapping this up, what if you test the valve, it works correctly, but you have a trouble code? Then you want to check the wiring. Again, very easy to do. I have a test probe kit. Now, again, not necessary, but makes the job very easy. If you don't want to have or purchase something like this, you can use paper clips, but be really, really gentle. And all that I'm doing, I'll give you a close-up in a moment, inserting the test probes directly into the harness connector. And now on the multimeter, I want the volts DC setting. Okay. Let me just place this on the engine here. I'll have to give you a bigger shot so you can see this in a moment. The nice thing is, if you do plan on working, maintaining, repairing your own vehicle, you purchase some of these tools, then they're not very expensive, but you have them for years and you can do so many things with them. So let's hook everything up to the multimeter, and all that we're going to do is turn on the ignition key and see if we have a reading here. Okay, don't have to start the vehicle, just turn on the key. That's it. Let's see if we have a reading. And we're at 9 volts. That's a little low. Could be just a bad connection, but once again, this is receiving battery voltage. Now we know there isn't a wiring issue. Of course, if you are doing this job, make sure you also replace the hosing. You're crazy not to. Very inexpensive. You can pick that up at your local parts store. That's all it takes to test everything. Very easy. So I would say the hardest part is just removing this from your vehicle. If you don't want to go too extravagant and add power, just see if you can blow air through it. If you can, and there's no power being applied to this, you know the valve is bad. There should be no air flowing through this whatsoever unless it's energized. And that's all it takes. So save yourself at least an hour of a shop charging you $150, $160 just in labor to test this. You could do it at home. It takes you no more than maybe an hour and a half, and you know exactly what's going on. As always, I hope this is helpful, and thank you for watching.